Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today is all about Wildcard Gameweek 6, why you might want to activate it, who are the most essential players, and a few of the best possible drafts you could go for. As always, 10 likes is the aim, and let's talk about why you might want to wildcard. In my opinion, this is probably the first week that the wildcard has actually been tactically viable. Some people may have wildcarded in Game Week 4 out of necessity, but Wildcard 6 is the first game week in which it's an actual tactical advantage, probably because of some of the fixture swings for some of the teams, like Arsenal and Brentford. Speaking of which, these are some of the reasons why you might want to wildcard if you're umming and ahhing about it. I would suggest you wildcard if you don't have any Arsenal assets for the next couple of game weeks. Also, those without Brentford assets might want to think about it as well. That's mainly about Mbeumo. On the other hand, if you've got assets like Gordon or Isaac in your team, you might also want to think about wildcarding, as well as rotation risks like Jota and Muniz. It's also a perfect time to sort of strengthen your bench and get the players out like Kwanzaa and Barco that you may have had since the start and you were just waiting to get rid of them. And as well as good fixture swings, there's been some negative ones as well. So the likes of Fulham and Crystal Palace, their fixtures get a little bit more difficult. So if you've got the likes of Henderson and Robinson in your defence, you might want to think about swapping them out. You may also just want to mix up your team, so who am I to stop you if you want to do that? If that's what you want to do, then just go for it. I have, however, got a few suggestions on who I think the most essential players to have in your Wildcard Game Week 6 team are. And given the fact that Arsenal are one of the best defences in the league and he's also just scored 2 game weeks in a row, Gabriel's probably pretty essential in terms of a defender at the back. Unfortunately, for those of us who are just wildcarding in now, we've probably missed out on the goal returns. I can't imagine him getting 3 goals in 3 games, but he still has the best attacking data of any of the Arsenal defenders. He's such a danger from set pieces. Another Arsenal player I think is absolutely necessary is Bukayo Saka. He's the best attacker in their team and he's just seems to be guaranteed a return every single week. A pretty popular transfer this week will be taking Salah out and putting Saka in. Mbeumo, in my opinion, is probably the most essential player outside of Erling Haaland. I don't think at his price point anybody else is going to get close to him returns-wise. We already knew he was going to be the main man as soon as Tony left, and if you're anything like me, this transfer has been planned since game week 1. I just don't think you can go without Haaland for the foreseeable future. He's already in double-figure goals this season, and their fixtures swing in game week 7. He's got Fulham, then Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth, Brighton. Who's to say he won't be at 20 goals after game week 11? He's the best captaincy option most weeks, and if you go without him, you're just running such a high risk of him hurting your rank. There's also a few more players that I think are close to essential as well, and one of them is Watkins. He seems to have finally got into the swing of things after a few rusty games at the start of the season. Raya is the best goalkeeper in the game by far, and for me the only choice for a goalkeeper in the game. Second place is nowhere near. Rodgers is still the best player at his price point in my opinion, so I won't be going anywhere apart from with him. He was obviously pretty frustrating at the start of the season, but he's finally kicked on with some attacking returns, so I'd stick with him. And finally, Luis Diaz. Now, for me, out of all these players, Luis Diaz is the only one that I'm not dead certain on, and I'm not 100% on him being in my Game Week 6 wildcard team. The rest of them are in for me. He's just scored so many points this season so far, and his ownership's going to rocket. So again, he could really hurt your rank if you don't go with him. Let me know in the comments below how many of them get into your wildcard team. I've touched on it earlier with the Arsenal players I think I'm going to go for, but triple Arsenal is a necessity as well. But whether you go double defence or double attack is up to you. Personally, I think their strengths are in defence, so I'll be going for Raya, Gabriel and also Saka. They play Leicester, Southampton and Bournemouth next, so if I'm being totally honest, I want to see 3 clean sheets. If you do want to go with 2 of their attackers though, I'd go with Saka and Kai Havertz. Havertz is the most likely to get goals in their team apart from Saka, and he obviously plays up top. But with Martin Odegaard's injury, you don't know if he's going to drop back a little bit. If I was going Saka and Havertz though, I would also take Gabriel over Raya. Gabriel to me is more essential than Raya because of his ability to score goals. And if I wasn't going to take Raya, you can have 2 4.5s in your team in the likes of Flecken for Brentford and Verbruggen for Brighton. They rotate really well. Personally, I don't like rotating goalkeepers, but if you do, that's who I'd go for. I hope you're finding the information useful so far, and before we get into a few of the drafts, if you could consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's move on to the first draft, and this comes in with a team value of 99.8. You'll see a lot of the players I've already spoken about as a basis in these teams with the other players selected around them. So for this one, we start with Raya in goal for the reasons I've said and pair him with a 4 million goalkeeper of your choice. It doesn't really matter. None of them are playing at the moment. With the double up on the Arsenal defence, like I said, with Gabriel. And then Ola Aina, who's Nottingham Forest's fullback. Forest have been one of the best defences this season outside of Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City, so it's a great choice to pick up any of the players from their defence. Trent for me stays in just because of what he offers going forward. And a little bit of a differential in Leif Davis. After they play Villa in Game Week 6, they play West Ham, Everton, Brentford and Leicester, who haven't been great this season so far. So it could be an option to pick him up for that good run. Because of Brentford's fixture swing as well, I think Van den Berg is the best £4 million defender to pick up. He's played 90 minutes in the past 2 games, but they have played 5 at the back. I'm not sure if he gets in the team when they play a 4. We're yet to see what the manager does in that case. Saka makes it triple Arsenal and Rodgers and Mbeumo join him. I also think Semenyo is a great option at his price point. They play Southampton, who are the worst team in the league in my opinion, and then they play Leicester. So a nice little punt for a couple of game weeks. And although Fulham's fixtures get a bit harder now, I've kept Smith Rowe in this team because he's really highly owned and he's just been on fire. His minutes are becoming more secure and he's just making a difference at Fulham. Haaland and Watkins I've already spoken about, but joining them in the third striker spot for me is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Everton also have a fixture swing in Game Week 6, where they play Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, then Brentford. His minutes seem to be secure this season, and he's not injured, and he's their main man. So a good player to rotate in and out with one of the midfielders on the bench. So the pros of this team are that you've got triple Arsenal, in my opinion double defence, which is the best way to go. You've also got Mbeumo and Watkins. On the flip side, you do only have the one City player and you don't have a Liverpool attacker. So if you want to combat some of those negatives, you could possibly go for a team a little bit like this. Watkins makes way for Stewart just for the funds, which means you can take Olaina out, put Guardiola in, but you can also take Smith Rowe out and put Phil Foden in. Now, this is obviously a risk, but it is a calculated one. Foden hasn't really started the season well due to his problems with illness, but we know what he can do from last season, and the fact that they have injuries now to De Bruyne and Rodri, I think Foden's just got to play more minutes. This could be the perfect time to get him when he's a differential and get ahead of the curve. But again, it's a big risk. As I said, Foden is still a minute's risk, so that could be a negative. Again, there's no Liverpool attack in this team. You also have a weaker bench because you've had to put Stewart in, and you've got no Ollie Watkins. But you do still have triple Arsenal, double defence, you still have Mbeumo, and now you have triple City. And this is the third and final option I'm looking at personally. The back five returns to the same as draft number 1, with Guardiola coming out and Aina coming back in. But in this draft, instead of taking Watkins out for Stewart, you take Calvert-Lewin out for Stewart, which is obviously a smaller drop in ability. And all this gives you funds to get Diaz. This team allows you to cover the Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool attacks, as well as having the triple up on Arsenal and the double defence, and owning Mbeumo and Diaz, who are probably going to be the most transferred in players this game week. But you again will have a weaker bench. Diaz's minutes with the Champions League coming up, he's only getting 60 or 70 minutes a game at the moment. You're back to only having one Man City in Haaland, and you don't have Emile Smith Rowe, who is very highly owned, and like I said earlier in the video, could harm your rank if he goes off. Anyway guys, that's it for another video. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments below what you think of the teams, if you're wildcarding, and who you're going for. Be sure to check out some of my other content, and like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more FPL content to come, and I'll catch you later on in the week with my final Game Week 6 team selection. So if you want to see what team I go for, make sure to tune in.